U.S. Farm Report at the Executive Women in Agriculture Conference is brought to you by America's Farmers Mom of the Year contest. Visit americasfarmers.com for more information.
We're back now with more on U.S. Farm Report. As I mentioned earlier, looks a little different today. We're actually at the Executive Women in Agriculture Conference in Chicago, Illinois. We hit on corn, we hit on soybeans. Let's look to next year. I heard from some experts that they are suggesting to forward sell your contracts. We saw so many farmers get in a bind last year because they didn't produce the yields that they thought. So why would this be a good idea this year?
I'll take that. Right now, I think that just to do some small sales for 2013 is prudent, 10% at most. I wouldn't go beyond that at this juncture of time, just because with the soil depletion, just as much as it is, it's too risky. So I would say a 10% start is good for a lot of guys. They can get $6 cash on that new crop corn, and that's $1 profit at least. So definitely get started, but to go out to 2014, shoot, you don't know your input costs that far out, so I wouldn't dare.
Sue, what do you think? I mean, I've heard some experts say not only 13, you need to be looking at this 14 crop.
Well, I don't think I would push the 2014 crop just yet. I think that comes when you're in the year of 2013. But what I do think is that we have a huge difference in the November expired to the November new crop in price. And we have a huge difference in the Dees corn that's going to expire on the 14th of December and the December 2013 corn. And if you go back and look at history, when you have those huge gaps, when one expires and the next one comes on, the next one tends, they might fall back a little bit, but they tend to start coming on forward. They're undervalued. And I think for me, I guess I would tend to hold off a little bit and wait this out just a little bit. We know that if you go into February and we're still so dry, Western Corn Belt is bone dry. You have 74% of the country in drought and 20% in major drought. I think we got to be real careful starting this, but yeah, we need to keep a very close eye on it.
Sue, talking about it being dry, I was just in Texas and the wheat crop looks awful. Cattle producers are trying to pull cattle off of some of those wheat pastures because it's just not a good feed source. And there's no other feed source available. We saw some, massive herd liquidations, 2011, 2012. Is that cycle going to continue on into 2013?
Well, the cattle cycle, the 10-year cattle cycle has been a reliable cycle in agriculture. It has a bottom in a year that ends with a 6, a high that ends in a year with a 3. So we're headed to 2013, and we should expect some explosive cattle prices. But to get to the level that we usually get for a cycle high, we need to have some herd retention. And so therefore, until we get some good moisture in the plains, there isn't any encouragement for those producers to keep those heifers out of the slaughter mix and keep them down so we can have a cycle high in the cattle market. To say we are going to have a very tight supply situation in the cattle market for the next couple of years, it's just a question right now for me whether that cycle high is going to come in 2013 or might be extended to 2014 if we don't get any rain. Do you agree?
Absolutely, and building on what she said, looking normally like from second quarter to third quarter, you see an increase of cattle production from 100 million to 300 million pounds. And this next year, they're already projecting that it's going to be a deficit, and we're going to be down by 30 million pounds. And so what will happen, we're going to see that August number come up, and we might even have it almost an inverted market. There's just that much of a supply shortage, and producers do have a tough battle. We're just all hoping and praying for rain this winter and spring.
Speaking of producers having a tough battle, those hog producers. I mean, they were projecting $57 losses in the fourth quarter. Now that we're in it, they're thinking more $27 losses. But still, that's not sustainable. That's hard to take losses that much. When could we see that profit return?
I think it's going to be this next year. I still think we hold a chance for the futures, the February contract and the Dees contract, to make higher highs here for the year in December. But I think as we go forward, we're exporting a lot of pork. And on top of it, you've got Europe now estimated to be really down hard in pork production next year in the last half of the year. China's trying to expand. They keep saying they have record crops, corn crops, that type of thing every year for the last 9 years. If they're getting record crop, it's because they're expanding acres. It's not the production per se itself. I think that we're going to have a good world demand. And you look at the U.S. The U.S. has at least 47 million people, or 47% of its population, or 47 million people, on food stamps. That's a pork and poultry and hamburger generation.
So Sue, you're thinking though that we could have some profitability return, hopefully?
Absolutely, I do.
All right, well, that wraps it up here at the Executive Women in Agriculture Conference from Chicago, Illinois. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to stay tuned because we have more coming up on U.S. Farm Report.